Okay, in today's quick tip, I'm going to show you how to make a paint cup holder out of an empty quart can and a handle from an empty 1 gallon tin can. I've been making these for a few years now, and they're real handy for paint and varnish work. I buy these 32-ounce deli cups from Gordon's, and what's nice about the cups is they're always clean. There's 25 that come in a pack. I usually buy 4 or 5 packs when I go there. And for clean paint and varnish work, it's essential to have a clean container. And these are on the thin side, so it's nice to have a can like that to hold the, with a handle on it, so you could hold that. So I've been using them for a couple of years now. I'm going to show you how to make one. I've had this one for a few years now, and I cut a hole in it. I was experimenting with something, and I actually JB welded this handle on there because I didn't know how to solder before. I tried it. I always tried soldering with a big torch, this torch over here, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I put some flux on there and the solder would always run off. Well, recently I learned how to solder, and it's not hard to do, and I would rather solder the handle on, because I made another cup like this and the JB weld eventually broke off. So I made this one about an hour ago, and I soldered it on, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So there's really just 3 steps. The first step is to cut the rim or the top off of this empty quart can, and you can get these from usually any hardware stores. You just cut that off, and I just used a can opener from home to cut that off. And there were a few, these are a little bit thicker than canned goods, so you might have to do it a couple of times to get through. And then there's a couple of jagged edges on the inside. I went through and just took a Dremel, or you could take a file or something and just smooth that out so it doesn't get you later. So that's the first step, to cut the rim off. And the second step is to take this handle off of an empty, this happens to be either a lacquer or a mineral spirits can, and they have these handles on it. I usually just throw these cans out. Sometimes I'll save them to put something else in them. But these handles are soldered on. Now what I did is, this was an empty can, but I filled it up with water. I don't want any, there's no fumes in it. The water's just about to the top there. So I'm going to show you, I'll just take that. This is the second step, just to take this off. So I just grab onto it with some pliers. Just kind of heat that up. There's the first one. And you can see that solder underneath there. And there's still a nice layer of solder on the underside of the handle. Okay, now that the handle's off of the 1 gallon can, it's time to locate it on this quart can. And what I did was, I put it on the seam. I just kind of lined it up there, and then I take a Sharpie and just locate it like that, because what you want to do is you want to score into that metal a little bit just to clean it up. So I do that with this Dremel cutoff tool. Okay, so that's done. That's just to ensure that you're going to have good metal contact there. Sometimes, this is an older tin can, but sometimes they put coatings on them, so you want to cut into that. Now, this is an option. You can go ahead and take all this solder off and clean that off and do the same thing with the Dremel or a grinder, but I didn't do it on this first can. the solder on here looks good, and what that's called is tinning. So that's what I'm going to do to this section here. Before I solder these on, you want to put a layer of solder on each part. So I'm going to clamp this into place, and I'm going to show you that. I just learned how to do that. It's called tinning, and what you do is you put, I have some flux here. This is the, I think it's petroleum. You could buy the water soluble stuff too. But I just put a little bit on that newly shined metal. And what this does, from what I understand, it cleans the metal a little bit, but I think more importantly, it helps to distribute the heat into that metal. So you put the little bit of flux on there, and the tip of the soldering gun needs to be tinned also, and I've already done that. You clean it off, you'll put it in the flux, and then you'll tin it with this solder. And this is 6040 tin lead solder, and it's 32nd, it's what, 0.032 diameter. And the first thing I did was to tin this, and then you want to do what's called a charging it, and you just put a little bit of solder on there. And what you're going to do is you're just going to transfer it on to this surface here. There's a little bit, I want to put a little bit more. There's a nice good layer, and you want to make sure that this, seats against your surface nice, before you do this. Put a little bit more on. And I'm also going to put a little bit more on this. It's a nice layer. Okay, so there's a layer on the handle and on the can. Now you just put it where you want it. I'm not going to clamp this or anything. I'm going to hold it. And what I do is I put a little bit, just a little bit of flux on this top surface, and that's to transfer that heat through there, because you want to transfer the heat through the handle into the can and melt that solder. And also I'm going to charge the iron with a little bit of solder, and the solder will wick underneath the handle into the in between the two surfaces. So I'll do this top one first. I'm going to place it a little bit better. Just center it. So I'll put a little solder on here. I'm gonna run that edge first, I think. Then I'm just gonna you can see that coming through. I'm just gonna place this iron right on top and move it, and I can see that the solder underneath is wicking through there, or is starting to kind of ooze out. And I'll just hit this edge. That should be it. That's the top. Put a little bit more solder on and hit this edge. Let's see if we can see that. Here, I'll take the solder off of there. I'm going to just put this on the top, and you can see the solder underneath there melt. See how it comes, see how it's oozing out there? That's how you know it's melting underneath there. There we go. I'm going to put a little bit more solder on the tip and then run that edge. That'll wick under there a little bit. That's it. This is a 40-watt soldering iron, by the way. Anything from 35 to 50 watts I think will be fine for something like this. I'll let that stand for a minute. I'll stop the camera for just 1 minute, okay? Okay, I let the handle cool off a little bit and I wiped the excess flux off with the rag. So this one's all set to go. So now I have 2 extras. So it makes for a nice holder. So that'll do it for the quick tip on how to make a quart paint cup holder. Okay?